In order to make a product that folks enjoy, you really need to consider who it's for. Like, what are their pain points? What are they looking to get out of this product? And create something that not only works extremely well and is beautiful, but is holistically a really nice experience to use.
We help people with ideas get them to revenue.
Welcome to the Pitch to Product podcast. My name is Aaron.
And I'm Norm. We're your hosts and idea consultants here at 52 Launch, a company that specializes in turning your idea into a business.
On today's episode, we're taking a deep dive in the Accelerator program and talking about one of the most exciting parts, which is all things design. And we have two of the very best here. Thank you for joining us today. So, kind of taking a step into design, what would you say are the first steps you take when you're actually going to go design a product?
So the first steps we typically take here at 52 Launch is going to be talking with the customer, really getting a deep understanding of kind of their product idea, how they've gotten to the point that they are now, sort of where they are in the process. For some clients, that may mean they have just the start of an idea, a sketch on a napkin. Some clients may come to us with already having a patent. So we really need to understand sort of where they're starting from, what their product idea is, and then where to launch from there.
Excellent, excellent. So, just out of my own curiosity, if somebody's listening and they want to be advantageous at home, what kind of steps would you recommend them taking? Would you recommend them go draw on the back of the napkin? Would you recommend them go talk to an attorney, patent attorney? What would you do?
Not necessarily. It all depends on kind of the product idea itself, the inventor's experience with that product. A lot of times the inventors are really the experts in the things that they've got a great idea in. A lot of times clients come to us and they've been looking for something for themselves and can't find it on the market, so they'll do the research to try and find this product that they're looking for and see that it's not out there. So, it really depends. They definitely want to do some research on, what is out there and how their product idea might kind of fill that void in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
And at what point do you think that they find that it's viable? And really, at what point do we find that it's viable in the design stage?
It's a great question. Relatively early into the design process, I think a lot of it goes hand in hand with user research and market research and making sure the idea is a good fit in the market and serves a user need. At the end of the day, we're designing for an end user, and it's important to keep them in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the most important things is we're aligned with the consumer, right? That's the most important part of this process. But let's say, someone already goes to another design firm. They come to you with sketches or CAD files, right? They present them to you. How do you kind of navigate that process to start off and ultimately take them through our DFM and things like that?
A lot of times it's really understanding, particularly if they've come through a process with someone else prior to getting here, is understanding what about that process didn't work for them and where we can really step in to make it successful for them. And as Mike mentioned, really making sure that the value propositions that we're imbuing the product with and the end user are really what's being served by the things that we're focusing on.
Excellent.
How important is user research before we start designing the product?
Oh, it's paramount. It's absolutely paramount. In order to make a product that folks enjoy, you really need to consider who it's for. Like, what are their pain points? What are they looking to get out of this product? And create something that not only works extremely well and is beautiful, but is holistically a really nice experience to use.
Right, and it really comes down to, not just what the client can afford to bring to market, but also the value proposition. We really want to make sure that the value proposition rings true, no matter what material we're making out of the product. So talk to me a little bit about the restraints when it comes to budget and making the product a reality.
Sure. I truly believe that you can design, develop, manufacture a fantastic product at kind of any price bracket, and also depending on how much you want to invest in developing the idea. There are certainly ways with manufacturing or material selection, and even down to the design, how the product is designed to be manufactured. You can create a really wonderful product for relatively low budget. I mean, that being said, if you have a larger budget, there are definitely lots of bells and whistles you can add and some other considerations. But I think at the end of the day, like, understanding the constraints in terms of like budget and also the value proposition and user needs, all of that comes together, and that's really what the design process is. It's more than just sketching and making renders in CAD. It's considering the entire picture and bringing it together in one design with a little bow on it.
Yeah, I'd actually like to kind of nosedive down there a little bit further, like kind of expanding, if there's a client out there and they're, on the more bootstrap side, but also there's client B who's, who has more money in their pocket, right? What is that exactly going to look like, right? Does the tooling look more expensive? Do we navigate away from tools? What would you recommend in terms of price points in order to really be mindful of someone's budget during a process like this?
A lot of times it comes down to trade-offs, different materials or different features that are in the product. Those are all decisions we make along the way through our process. And if we know that budget is a tight constraint, then we'll make decisions that might be a trade-off in terms of, this may not have X number of bells and whistles, but oftentimes kind of the simplest solution are really the most elegant products oftentimes. Like some of the most functional and enjoyed products that you might have oftentimes are the simplest that really solve a problem in a very simple way. So, without having to go crazy on kind of the budget and things like that, you can definitely, come out with a product that really is still a fantastic product.
Yeah, I really like that, Kyle. I think as designers, a lot of times what we're tasked with and truly our responsibility is distilling an idea. Like, what are the absolute fundamental elements to make this product great, and stripping away everything else. I think it's important to remember, like, if it doesn't add to the product, it's subtracting. There's never a net zero. So if we're adding things that it doesn't need, I think at the end of the day, detracts from the user experience and can increase the price, and maybe you're left with a substandard product.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Norm and I, we always say, start off with the Toyota Camry, go to the BMW, and then the Ferrari. And I think that rings true from design. It's very, very, very mainly. But what about over-designing? Someone comes to you with an over-designed product. It's just too much on it. How do you go about that?
It's still part of the same process. So it's a matter of identifying what are the really core features of this. And it's definitely very easy to do that, sort of want to throw everything in the kitchen sink at something, and as Mike mentioned, it's at some point you're adding too much. And oftentimes with sort of bootstrapping or starting a new product in a new company, trying to do everything all at once makes it really hard to do any of it. Yeah. So if you can really focus on what are the key core value propositions and functions that the product needs to succeed, start from there and then learn what your customers are telling you from feedback and things as you get your initial product out there. You can really learn a ton by getting that V1 of your product, that sort of minimum viable product. Oftentimes we're talking with clients about that and really focusing on, okay, let's get you to a product rather than spending twice as much time and trying to get everything that we can think of into this. Let's get to the basic product, get it out there, and start learning from that. And then that gives us a lot of opportunity with revenue coming in from your V1 product to then add additional features that can be really meaningful to your users. That's what we're really finding, especially when we're talking to the first-time founders or people that want to start with our program. It's very easy to get lost in the final version, right? I always say that Steve Jobs didn't come out with the iPhone 16 right away. He came out with versions 1, 2, and 3. We follow crawl, walk, run. To get to that minimal viable product is exactly what we're after, right first and foremost. But what do you see, these first-time founders, the people that are signing on with us immediately, what are their mistakes, just initially in design when you're kind of asking for their approvals?
That's a good question. I think when you're launching a product, especially your first product, it's important to be focused. And I think being focused is one of the hardest things. To wake up in the middle of the night and have an idea that's extremely exciting that maybe deviates from the original plan, you have to have the discipline to put those aside and kind of commit all your energy and focus to the one singular mission. And then you can branch out later. But I think focus is really important to be successful.
I agree. One of the additional details with that is for someone who's doing this for the first time or the 10th time, this can be so engrossing and exciting. You're focused on it so much of your time, and a lot of the times we're on our side sort of doing a lot of our work in the background while the client is, on their side sort of waiting for that, and they've got so many ideas swirling around and everything that, it can sort of take over. So being able to sort of relax, focus on your core idea, have confidence in where you started with this and going through the process together with us, again, to not sort of overthink it and kind of derail things. So a lot of times that's part of our job too, is really, sort of keeping things on track.
Yeah, it's too easy to get lost along the way. I think and a lot of people run into this almost jungle of excitement, but there's no, there's a way out to have a functional prototype, but there's a lot of ways about it, right? In that kind of situation, how would you balance, functionality of the actual product and looks at the same time in order to, build a good product?
Yeah. Well, I think the two are extremely interrelated, and I think one without the other is a total missed opportunity. For sure, for a product to be great, it needs to work extremely well, but it should also be beautiful. It should be an object that you enjoy using, that pops on shelves, that pops on online. But I think there are always great opportunities to take some of the functionality and explore that in terms of form as well. I think making a product that is truly considered all the details of form on the outside and the inside, even if the end user might not see that, always yields a better product, even in the manufacturing process or what have you. So they're both interrelated, and for sure they both need to be considered. One without the other is not a good thing.
And speaking to that, how closely should design align with brand identity?
That's a good question. I'd say a lot of our clients, we're launching maybe their first product, so the brand identity is built along with the product. And I think it's important to develop a strong brand identity, but brands can change just like people, and there's always constant motion. But I think having a pretty strong conviction with your brand and getting the design to follow that is really important, and yields a great product and a great brand.
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad you actually brought that up. During this process, right, it's a very complicated process. You guys do a lot of work, right? Do you guys ever involve engineers in a process like this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's specific specialists in different types of engineering, whether that's mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. So depending on the product and the project, we pull those experts in where they're able to sort of best give us the expert guidance that we need on some of those specific details for a project.
Okay. And then just so everyone's kind of on the same page, what is the difference between industrial design, an industrial designer, and an engineer?
Well, that's one that we could talk about for a couple hours probably on end. But at its most basic level, the design process really considers everything from that initial idea of the product through user research, coming up with the form and function of the product, and is a very holistic way of looking at a process really of taking an idea and bringing it all the way to being a product. Mechanical engineering, for example, has very specific pieces within that process and focuses on the materials and the strength and manufacturability and a lot of those details. But the design process really is kind of a very holistic process for taking that idea from sort of an initial idea to a real finished product.
Yeah.
Many times, we deal a lot with better mousetraps. A lot of products that may have an oversaturated market. I'd love to get an answer from both of you on how do we sort of deal with products in an oversaturated market, and how do we get them to stand out in a way that it deserves to stand out, frankly, because it really comes down to the value proposition.
Yeah. Of course, there is the value proposition,
Yeah.
but in an oversaturated market, could be a good identification that this is a product that a lot of people enjoy, this category of product, and that's why many companies have come out with their version of it. I think being able to make yours work a little bit better, look a little bit better, feel a little bit better, maybe they're improved ergonomics or something like that, and just overall have a better user experience is definitely a way to kind of like bolster up your product and kind of stand stand apart, along with branding and your marketing. But I think all of this really comes back to just focusing on the consumer, like trying to make the best possible experience we can for them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I resonate 100% because Mike, we've had conversations about my own accelerator that I'm doing, a holistic skincare brand that's really just a couple of ingredients. It's tallow, beef tallow, rendered cow fat, and it's really about 4 to 5 ingredients. But I kind of had no idea how much you guys could get involved in this and how much that not only the look and the feel of it, but packaging as well, and kind of making sure that it stands out. So how do I would love for you to kind of recap that conversation in the lens of how are we going to make sure that this is going to really resonate with my customer base or a different client's customer base?
Yeah. Well, with that, I mean, for sure, it starts with the product, right?
Yeah.
Like a tremendous formulation that works extremely well, smells good, feels nice on your skin. The product and the ingredients need to be super dialed, so it's that in of itself is a nice experience. But past that, packaging it in such a way that's really easy to take out the right amount and use. Especially, sometimes you get things in a jar, and if it's a relatively expensive product, the worst is like having to poke around to get the last bits out of the jar. So sorting out any, like even a small pain point like that, when a consumer buys something and those things have been considered, it feels great. It's like the person creating this for me thought about me, and they put in the care and attention to just make a better experience. So little things like that can go a long way, as well as your brand identity. If you have a specific mission or message that you align with, that could be fantastic as well. But it is really, it's more than just the sum of the parts. Like every part and piece of your company and product needs to be extremely well considered, and when they're working together, it's like a well-oiled machine. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for everybody watching this for the very first time, right? Whether you're just getting into e-commerce, you're looking at 52 Lawns to perhaps bring your product to market. Let's talk about some of the terms that we hear about on a regular basis, right? What is the difference between a prototype, an MVP, and your final product?
yeah.
Sure, I can take that one. Yeah, so a prototype can actually take a lot of different forms, but essentially it's a physical way to try something out before you've got a finished product. So that could be something where you 3D print it or make it in a way so that you can look at kind of the way it looks. Could be the way it feels in your hand, the size, things like that. It could be actually functional part, something for soft goods, for example, could be a sewn sample of a shirt or a bag or something along those lines. And it's, again, one of those steps in the process that sort of gets us from the idea to the finished product. An MVP that we refer to is really a minimum viable product. So one of the things that we focus on oftentimes is not overcomplicating things for your first launch. So getting to an initial product that really has all the core, most important features to it that it needs to have without sort of overdoing it, and really focusing on that core functionality. And then obviously getting to your final product is once we've gone through all those processes and added in the manufacturing steps to then be able to make that product at scale.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, no, 100%. So, kind of expanding on that, because a lot of people don't really know the kind of behind the curtain scenes of the manufacturing world. Is very what we tell you, essentially. But once you have that final design, right, you want to go mass production, kind of peel back the curtain a little bit for us and talk about what's going on over at the factories, timeline, specifications, stuff that you would want the general public to know. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, it definitely varies by type of product. So if you've got something that's injection molded, for example, we'll need to make molds and tools to be able to make that part. So once we've completed our design and handed off that CAD, the 3D sort of definition of that product to the factory, they'll share mold designs back with us. Once those have been approved, it's usually 30 to 60 days, depending on the complexity of that mold, for them to actually cut all the metal into the mold to actually make that product. And then we'll have what we call trial samples. So we refer to those as T1, T2, so trial 1, trial 2. So they'll try out that new mold, make a part out of it, send it to us, and we'll check it. And it's typical and expected that the first one out of the mold isn't going to be 100% perfect. So we go through and detail in, okay, this and this need to be adjusted and corrected. So we'll work through that until we get it perfect. Once we go through those trials and get to where we've got an approved product, there's still a lot that goes into really the factory being able to make, not just one of those things, which we talked before about a prototype was essentially, going to be one of something. When we get to scale and mass production, they need to be able to make multiples of the same thing over and over and over again and reliably know that the quality is going to be the same on the 100th part as it was on the first part. Right. So a lot of that also comes down to really defining and communicating with the factory. All right, these are the key details that you need to be paying attention to from a quality perspective. What are the really important parts for this product for it to work properly?
Yeah. Let's kind of dive into timeline as a whole. And I know this is a loaded question, but how long do you usually think that the design phase takes?
It's a good question. It really depends on so many factors. We talked about prototypes for a little bit, and maybe someday in the future we dive into that more because that's a whole fantastic topic. But before we can really design anything, we have to verify that the idea works. So we need some sort of proof of concept prototype, and sometimes it can be a one and done thing if it's a relatively simple product. An injection molded piece, we could CAD that up, 3D print it, and we're good. Sometimes if it's a complex mechanism, it could take a lot more time to really experiment and figure out how this device, this product is going to work. So that's kind of the first step is verifying that the core functionality is possible, is working correctly. And then after that, we get into kind of like the nuts and bolts of design. So it's like aesthetic considerations, functional considerations, manufacturer considerations. And that usually takes a few rounds of us aligning with the client as well as working together to kind of find the best, most elegant solutions. And then from there, we start engaging with the factories. We can get some samples that our factory partners will create. And then once all of these things have happened, we can move into tooling. So I know that wasn't a specific timeline, but you can imagine each one of those steps could be extremely long or extremely short. And it really just depends on the product.
Yeah. It's a very nonlinear process. Do you have something to add, Kyle?
Yeah, it like you said, it's definitely a very nonlinear process, and the complexity of the product plays into that a lot. We've got a very streamlined and honed process here to really work our way through being able to get from that idea to sort of the core of what we need to understand the cost and those sort of things, and then move on to manufacturing from there. So, for a very simple product, it can often take, in the range of 10 to 12 months. Products that I've worked on even before being at 52 launch was typical for things to take 2 to 3 years for the products that we were working on. So oftentimes we're moving through that process very efficiently here. And it can certainly be frustrating for clients, sort of not understanding what that process can look like, that, the process that we are going through here is efficient and reasonably quick compared to what these types of projects can take.
So I'd like to kind of dive a little bit deeper in that. What would you say, the simple product, 10 to 12 months, is that a mouse for a keyboard that you'd have on your computer? Is a simple product a hairdryer, or is it, a comb? Like, talk to us about what would you say kind of fit in the silos of different timestamps?
It's really difficult to actually say that. Could even something like the mouse that you're mentioning.
Yeah.
That's a good example that, like we discussed previously, of like a saturated market. There's 1,000,001 mice out there. So if we're doing something for a computer mouse, we're going to be focusing on really specific value propositions that are going to make that stand out. So while that seems like it's actually a very simple and small product, that could actually be a very complex one. And the electrical engineering and electronics and things like that on the inside of it actually add quite a bit of complexity and time.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so kind of as we're talking about this whole, the design phase, what, from your perspective, what do you think 52 Launch does to support the entrepreneurs as they're going through this specific phase, kind of on their journey to market?
Yeah. So we work extremely collaboratively with all of our clients, our entrepreneurs. I think it's important that we align our design interests as well as their entrepreneurial endeavors. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the best parts of working here is being able to work collaboratively with people that are really passionate about their idea. And, you know, we support them through every step of the process, from early design iteration through prototyping, CAD, design for manufacturing, all the way through to manufacturing with the factories. And of course, the whole process is extremely collaborative. They're involved every step of the way.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about our clientele as a whole, right? Because nobody's calling us with a Rockefeller last name. I just want to get a really, really good understanding as to what role does design play in attracting investors or partners. Talk to me a little bit more about how important that truly is.
Sure. I mean, it all starts with a great idea, but a great idea is just that. I think it's the execution of the idea that will really get other folks interested if you're looking for investment or something like that. And I think design's role is taking a great idea and trying to execute it as clearly as possible. Like, a good design is an idea clearly stated. So if we can do that, then we've done a pretty good job, and I think other people will be able to see the design, the product, and understand it very quickly and get excited about it.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, you guys have your experience of, you know, at 52, you know, before 52. You've seen it all, essentially, right? Just shy of the rocket ship, or at least that's what Norm and I say. What are the, kind of talk to us about the feelings of seeing a product, you know, fully in market, and you know, because you really develop a personal relationship with a lot of these people that you work with. I mean, it's time consuming, it's hard, it's not easy, it's non-linear, as we mentioned before. But I'd love to kind of understand what is that experience like for you guys?
Yeah, it's really exciting. You know, as you mentioned, even before being at 52 launch, being involved with, you know, creating a product and then seeing it out in the world is definitely a really exciting experience. One of the pieces that is even more fulfilling with 52 launch is, as we're working with our clients, it's unique and specific to what we do, is that these are generally first-time entrepreneurs and first-time people, you know, people who are creating a product for the first time versus working for a corporation who's got a whole bunch of employees and already sells products and things like that. So these are for very personal relationships. We work, you know, very collaboratively with our clients, and so it's also very exciting and rewarding to see that product get out into the market and out into the world sort of for them. One of the really interesting parts about working here is, from a design perspective, we're designing the products, but we're also educating our clients in the process as we go through it. So that's definitely a very rewarding and sort of different aspect of working at 52 launch. And then because of that, when you get to the point of sort of launching a product, it's very rewarding.
Yeah, 100%.
It is. I mean, and especially for us, because we're the first people that they talk to. You know, as soon as they come through the door, we get to hear their idea, and they're, you know, essentially a very different person at the end of the program than they are in the beginning. So I know that I send you guys a lot of AI images when I speak to a client for the first time, just to give you a ballpark idea of what we're going for here. So I just want to get a good understanding. How difficult is it to turn that concept, that idea, into a fully functioning product?
Well, first and foremost, I think AI is great and really exciting. I mean, to become an industrial designer, there's tons of schooling and training to be able to draw well, to be able to build CAD models well. And it just takes time and a lot of experience to get proficient at that, so you can convey ideas clearly. Now, with AI, it's pretty cool. You can punch in prompts or have the AI generate visuals for you, which is great, especially for folks that maybe are not and don't have as much experience drawing, or just like cannot put together a visual representation of what they want. Now, where AI currently stands is those visuals, those visualizations of what maybe the idea is, are not manufacturable at this moment. So there's lots of considerations that kind of need to go into that. You know, is that manifestation of that idea feasible, or like does it totally need to be redesigned? Are there visual cues that the AI generated and spit out that resonate with the client? And if so, like we could take those and develop the idea around that. I think it's definitely helpful just to align visually. I think one of the biggest hurdles, or I'd say the biggest first step in the process, is to be able to have a shared visual identity with our clients, like be able to agree on what aesthetics are important and where we should align with that. So AI is cool for that, but the image that it spits out is definitely not manufacturer ready.
Very true.
Yeah.
One detail that I would add to that
Yeah.
too is also really getting a good understanding up front, those prompts and things that you put in and what it spits out, you don't have a lot of tight control over that. So
Yeah.
while it may give somewhat of a visual representation of sort of where the client is trying to go with this, understanding, does the client love this AI image that they showed you and that's really what they want? Or was this just sort of an attempt at AI, distilling what they were trying to say, and it really missed the mark because of A, B, and C reasons? So when they show that to us, it can be helpful in helping us to understand what they're trying to convey, but we need to make sure that we're clear with them, or we're clear on what they're trying to tell us is, yeah, this is right, like this nailed it out of the park. If we could make this, I'd be thrilled, or yeah, it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what I'm going for, but if you gave me exactly this, you'd totally miss the mark. So we need to understand that up front too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. I think communication is the biggest part of this whole process. I mean, having a team go to work for you, go to bat for you is excellent, but you got to be communicative. In all the projects that you've experienced through your life, what type of projects or products are your favorite? Whether it be, a golf product, whether it be a baby product, or just a mechanism within the product that you really love.
Dishing out a fun one.
Dishing out a fun one is right. Yeah, it's what I do around here.
So I actually have two pieces of the answer to this. So I've been really fortunate in my career to have a lot of opportunity to work in the sporting goods space, which I have really loved doing. I've done a lot in sports equipment, helmets, and things like that, which I've had a lot of passion about, and feel very fortunate to have been able to do that. For me personally, though, when I get into 3D CAD is where I really thrive the most. So a really in-depth and interesting 3D CAD model for me is where I'm kind of the happiest. I sort of lose track of time, look up, next thing, start in the morning, you look up, next thing, you miss dinner kind of.
Yeah, everybody's out of the office.
Exactly,
Where'd everybody
go? Yeah, so, figuring out those things in 3D, to me, a lot of times a really good 3D model like that is like a puzzle.
Yeah.
You're sort of figuring out ways to make things work, and it's really engaging.
Was the sports aspect of it? Were you an athlete growing up, or do you love the designs behind sports equipment?
Both, actually. So yeah, I was an athlete. I played lacrosse. I played lots of sports, but played lacrosse in college, and happened to do my senior thesis on a lacrosse product, and then was fortunate enough to be hired by a lacrosse company. So loved doing that. Both lacrosse, soccer, volleyball, field hockey. The company did a lot of sports equipment, and then moved on to more helmet-specific things from there. So. Definitely started out sort of specific to my own athletic endeavors, but then, spread into lots of other sports too that I didn't necessarily play and things like that. But there's something really engaging about designing things for that level of performance.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint a specific product. I get mostly excited about being able to develop products and design products that just foster a really nice user experience. That's super important all the way around. And I think being able to take a product that is normally a bit mundane and adding some joy and excitement to it, personally is really exciting to do as a designer. But yeah, I think consumer electronics are fascinating because there's so many different components that need to be considered, not just from a industrial design standpoint, making a nice housing, but the user interaction with that is paramount as well, just because you need to be able to use the product in a way that's extremely intuitive. If we can design products and you never need to open the user manual, you've done a good thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think any product can be exciting to design. It's just finding the parts that can really shine and ramping those up and just kind of making the product the best it can be.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, thinking ahead, putting yourself in the shoes of the consumer is really what has made you guys so great. I mean, I've seen your work. Frankly, it speaks for itself. And Norman, I would like to thank you guys for coming on the show, talking all about design in our accelerator program.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. I mean, again, you guys are the superheroes. So we talk to the people that are coming through the door for the first time, get a really good understanding for their idea. And we wish we were the smartest people in the room, but the truth is we have an entire team, of 50 professionals backing us and, bringing products to market every single day, and having, a real strategic outline of how to do it, because there is no roadmap of bringing a product to market the right way. It's just sure determination. And we're very lucky to have you both.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yep.
We hope you enjoyed watching this podcast as much as we enjoyed filming it. If you want to learn more about 52 Launch, click these videos here. Don't forget to subscribe to the Pitch to Product podcast. And if you have a product idea, head to the show notes, click the link to 52launch.com, and book a free consultation with us.